The time has come. The event TV show of the year is here. House of the Dragon is my most anticipated TV show of the year. In fact, I have never been this excited for a TV show since the 8th season of Game of Thrones. Now, let's not think about that. Well, despite the massive disappointment that season 8 was, I was still super excited for this one. So, was it worth the wait, and is this the first season even comparable to the first season of Game of Thrones? Let's discuss. Before we begin, let me remind you to please hit the subscribe button. A lot of other early reviews, including Lord of the Rings, Cobra Kai Season 5, and She-Hulk, are coming up. Also, I know many of you are excited for this one and have a lot of questions in mind, so you can ask as many questions as you want in the comment section down below without spoilers. So, now let's head on to the review. Adapted from George R.R. Martin's Targaryen history book Fire and Blood, House of the Dragon is set 200 years before the events of Game of Thrones. The show focuses on an infamous event in Westeros history known as the Dance of the Dragons. This is a civil war that took place between siblings Aegon II and Rhaenyra Targaryen over the throne after the death of their father Viserys I. The war pit all of Westeros against itself, with other houses such as Starks and Lannisters joining either side. Many of House Targaryen's powerful dragons perished and soon afterward would go extinct until Daenerys Targaryen would hatch 3 eggs hundreds of years later. So yeah, of course this season does not cover all of it. This is infamously known as the Targaryen Civil War, and season 1 is just the beginning. But I would say that it was a great beginning. The way the story has been executed here is incredible. Unlike Game of Thrones, which had to focus on different storylines which were all equally important, that is the Westerosi politics, adventures of Daenerys in Essos and Jon Snow at the Wall and beyond, this show has less burden of branching storylines because the central story of King's Landing is by far the biggest contributor to the narrative here. It dives deeper into the Westerosi politics and Game of Thrones. This is not about some white walkers or other fantastical elements. The only fantastical elements here are the dragons. The story is the one that will have to steal hearts, and it already stole one. The main character here is indeed Rhaenyra Targaryen. Everyone expects her to be as good as Daenerys Targaryen. At first I actually thought that her character was uninteresting, and that she won't be anywhere as good as Daenerys by the end. But over the course of the season, I started to think that there might be potential. I just hope that Emma D'Arcy can pull it off, because as of now, she really lacks a personality and attitude that made Daenerys such a compelling and badass character. By the end of the season, I do think that there is potential here, but I won't put my money on it. Matt Smith as Prince Daemon Targaryen was quite the character though. He was indeed my favorite out of all. His character is cunning and badass at the same time. I don't feel a lot of sympathy towards his character, so there is something they need to work on, but besides that, his character was the best. However, I would also say that Olivia Cook's Alicent Hightower was a great character too. Her character development throughout the first season really impressed me. Everyone else was good, but I think that's where this show lags in comparison to Game of Thrones Season 1. That first season of Game of Thrones directly made us fans of characters like Daenerys and Ned Stark and Cersei Lannister. Certainly, even this season has made me a fan of some characters, but not to the degree that Game of Thrones did. However, it is unfair to compete this with the greatest show of all time, but that's what everyone, including me, expects it to be. Yeah, sure, it is not the same as how Star Wars prequels were to Star Wars originals, but still, it did give me those nostalgia chills on being back to Westeros. Yeah, granted, the world building is not as stunning as Tolkien's Middle Earth, but it doesn't need to be. Westeros was always supposed to be more real world, and seeing King's Landing again, the very King's Landing that I saw turned to ashes, and the Iron Throne, the very Iron Throne I saw being molten with my own eyes, was a pain and delight at the same time. Targaryen history was always fascinating to me, and the show dives deeper into that part and how they ruled Westeros. There are other families too, but it is mostly about the Targaryens. I would describe the first season as the one which introduces us to the whole world and sets up the base of the Targaryen civil war which we will be seeing in the upcoming seasons. It has a lot of time to depict it in detail, and the showrunners know it, so there is no hurry here. We do get interesting and amazing action scenes here too. We have a nice little battle here, but it is mostly about the politics behind the succession of the Iron Throne. Set that in your mind. It is all about politics. The scale on display here is wonderful, especially when we have a dragon on screen. Speaking of dragons, the show has been titled House of Dragon, and it sure has a lot of dragons for us to see. And I really love all these dragons. We don't have to go through the growing up period this time around, and I don't think they were underutilized, but I do think that they should have been utilized here towards the upper margin of the range. They are being utilized here because the show is titled House of the Dragon. Game of Thrones was known for its production values, and this show does that justice. It continues amazing production values, all those set designs were stunning. Either it is a great set or an amazing location. So whatever is on display is awesome, and I loved being in the world. The battle sequence here is beautifully choreographed, and the costumes were also great. Let's just see if House of the Dragon will win as many Emmys as Game of Thrones, because this time it has a tough competition from the Rings of Power in almost all blockbuster categories. I would say this, just like Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon is fantasy storytelling at its best. I loved it, especially the story and some of the character dynamics. The production values are incredible, the direction is incredible, and hell yeah, the showrunners know what they're doing. There were some really incredible episodes here. Yeah, surely we didn't get our Baylor of season 1, but we did have our Fire and Blood of season 1. I don't think I have any bad episode this season. There just isn't one. All episodes are great. In fact, the episodes range from being great to incredible. Granted, the characters aren't as interesting as the ones we saw in Game of Thrones season 1, but the story they are cooking is damn interesting. The show never loses me, and in fact has several goosebumps inducing moments. Overall, I loved it from start to finish, and I think that's all I wanted from it. I would like to give House of the Dragon season 1 a 9.2 out of 10. It is really a worthy successor of Game of Thrones, and I think anyone who liked season 1 to 6 of Game of Thrones is gonna love House of the Dragon. So that was my review about House of the Dragon. Share your thoughts in the comment section down below. Like, share and subscribe Film Villa, and thank you for watching.